And welcome into Pressbox Live. I'm Stan the Fan Charles of Pressbox and PressBoxOnline.com. And with me, as usual, on these Monday excursions into the baseball world is Ross Grimsley. How's the old left-hander doing today?
Doing good, Stan.
Ross?
Doing great, buddy. How are
Great.
you doing?
Great. Well, it's an exciting time for a variety of reasons. And our guest is now a Hall of Famer. And we're going to talk to Tim Kurkjian of ESPN in just a minute. And then we'll talk to him about the induction, all of his thoughts about that, surrounding that, how his life has changed. And then we'll get into some trade deadline talk. Blockbuster deal already done today with Josh Hader going to the San Diego Padres for a parcel in return. But first, I got to tell you, speaking of parcels, you get a parcel of good food at Costas Inn, and you don't even have to go in the restaurant. That's right. During the pandemic, the Costas Inn at 4100 North Point Boulevard, they picked up their curbside game. They stepped it up, I mean. You can go online at their website, CostasInn.com, and pay for your food there, order your food, and as I said, pay for it, then just come and pick it up out on the parking lot. They do a great job packing your food. That's the Costas Inn, whether it's steamed crabs, crab cakes, steaks, ribs, salads, chicken dishes. They've got it all there, and great desserts too. That's the Costas Inn, 410-477-1975. Well, we go from a Hall of Fame restaurant to a real bona fide Hall of Famer, and that is our old friend Tim Kurkjian. Tim, first of all, Ross and I were very anxious to get you on after the actual ceremony, when you know when your life got back to a little bit of normal. Has it gotten back to normal?
Yeah, I'm in the middle of the trade deadline. You don't have time for normalcy when massive trades are happening and names are flying all over the place. So it's good. I'm very well grounded again as I try to figure out what the heck's going on with the trade deadline.
All right. I guess now, do you feel any pressure that you have to live up to your Hall of Fame status now?
Yeah, I do. I've asked some of my friends, Peter Gammons, Dan Shaughnessy, and Jason Stark, and they said, no, I've never thought that way. Well, I do. The next story I write, since I went in as a writer, I keep thinking, well, it better be really good because I've reached a different level of status here. So as always, all my pressure is self-imposed. So I'm sure I'll write it 1,000 times, so it's good as it can be, because I have a certain attachment to it now.
Before I turn you over to Ross, you just said something that's kind of interesting. I've always thought that about you. You have self-imposed pressure on yourself to be excellent, to be as perfect as you can. Is that true?
Yeah, I think most people are that way. And boy, I nearly killed myself making that speech. I did it 200 times, practiced it out loud by myself, and I just told myself, you're not going to look down at your notes. You're not going to read this. You're going to do it. And that's as nerve-wracking and as stressful a situation as I've ever been in my life. I have never been that scared. I've never been that nervous, ever. And when I walked to that podium, I just said a little prayer, please get me through this thing without falling down. And I did. So that was a great relief. As great as I enjoyed every second of 2 weekends ago, it was a great relief when I didn't have to talk anymore.
Is it fair to say that you don't say that same thing when you come on our Zooms? Like, oh, God, please let me not fail here.
I want to do well all the time, but you guys are far less intimidating than Cooperstown, New York. Let's put it that way.
Ross, I know you got a couple questions for your friend.
Timmy, I know you had, you told us earlier that you had about 50 family show up, and that had to be really exciting for you. You also had some guys, some Hall of Famers come to your speech as well. And I thought that was, that had to make you really feel really good about what you've accomplished.
Yeah, I was astonished by that. I think 10 Hall of Fame players, Reggie Jackson, Alan Trammell, Paul Mauder, Robin Yount, Jim Cott, Johnny Bench, they came to see me speak, and it was not an easy place to get to. You have to get on a bus to go there. It was amazing. So after the speech was over, I don't want to be corny about this, but Johnny Bench came up to me after the speech was over. We're back in the Otesaga Hotel, and he goes, "Come with me." So we go out on the veranda of the Otesaga overlooking this spectacular lake in Cooperstown. And he said, "Sit down next to me." And he said, "I want you to look at that lake. And I don't want you to say a word. I just want you to look at the lake for 1 minute. And I want you to think about where you are, how you got here, and how many people helped you get here." So I sat down next to the greatest catcher of all time. And for 1 minute, I silently looked at that lake and I teared up again. I mean, it was unbelievable. I'm thinking I'm sitting with Johnny Bench. We're the only two people out here. He does this with the first-time Hall of Fame players every year. Well, this time he did it with a writer. That was more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
Really?
That's a great story.
How,
Great story.
Tim, how, starting back when you were a kid, you played ball, you played baseball, you played basketball, you did that for years, in basketball for a lot. Did that obviously play in that? You had an understanding of the game. Did that help you during your time as a writer and a broadcaster and stuff?
Yeah, absolutely, Ross. Again, baseball was the primary language spoken in my house growing up. My dad was a really good player. My two brothers are in the Hall of Fame for baseball at Catholic University. This is all we talked about. This is all we thought about. I mean, I can't tell you how many times my dad would get his three boys together. We'd be sitting in the rec room watching a game, and he would say, "All right, Tim, you're playing shortstop. All right, there's runners at the corners with one out. Ball is hit to your left. What are you doing?" Meaning he was preparing us to play in a game that night or the next day. This is how our discussions went in my house. So I always felt like I was prepared for all of this, because especially when I went back to Cooperstown and I saw some Hall of Famers. I saw Tony Oliva, and I know Tony Oliva, but I remembered a day at DC Stadium in 1965. I was 8 years old. He had a home run, and my dad looked over at me and said, "That's one of the greatest young hitters I've ever seen." So yes, all the stuff that I learned when I was literally 7 and 8 years old, if not younger, I still use today, and that's really important for me.
Yeah. I was fortunate to play with and against a lot of Hall of Famers, and I'm sure you know all of them. But the one guy that I met, and I met him up in Toronto at an we were autographed, and Mickey Mantle. And my wife goes, who, by the way, congratulates you too. Bird said, "Be sure to tell you hi, congratulations."
Thank you.
But I met Mickey Mantle, and she goes, "Who is that?" And I said, "That's Mickey Mantle." And I was like a kid. It was,
Right.
I was in awe, and really no other player. Is there any one player that you really that you met or you saw or you were around that really you just kind of dropped your mouth, like, "Oh wow, that's so and so"?
Yeah, well, I was going over to the induction for the players on Sunday morning, and I'm on the Hall of Fame bus. Like, what am I doing on this bus? So there's one seat open on the bus, and this very regal, elegant looking man stops at my seat, looks at me and says, "Is it okay if I sit here?" And that was Sandy Koufax.
Oh, wow.
So I sat next to Sandy Koufax for 15 minutes. Now, look, I've met him plenty of times. I've interviewed him before. This wasn't a first time thing. So you might appreciate this, Ross. He's not great at talking about himself. So I didn't think this was the time to say, "Sandy, tell me about that great curveball," or "How did you go 97 and 27 your last 4 years?" So he was a great basketball player at the University of Cincinnati. So I asked him, "Do you still like to watch basketball?" And we talked for 15 minutes about basketball. And I asked him, he's only 6 feet tall. I said, "Sandy, could you dunk it easily in college?" And he goes, "Well, yeah." And he says, "Look at my hands." As we all know, he's got historically large hands. But what I
Right.
didn't, I knew he had long arms also, but he said, look at my arms. He said, my sleeve length is 37 inches. So because
wow.
I have these giant hands and these really long arms and I could jump a little, that's how I was able to dunk it. So I found it kind of fun. I
Really?
pulled an audible and said, all right, I'm going to talk to Sandy about basketball here instead of baseball. And it was a hoot. I really enjoyed it. So that was my brush with fame, even though it was like every minute in Cooperstown. I sat next to Sandy Koufax on the
Unbelievable.
way to the ceremony.
You know, it's
Something you would always
interesting.
remember.
Of course.
It's interesting Ross asked you that question with the passing of Bill Russell yesterday. ESPN showed several times an interview he did about 10 or 12 years ago about when he got to meet Jackie Robinson. Did you see it, Tim?
I saw it and
Yeah.
it was powerful, but keep going, Stan, explain.
But when he says, the only thing I feel bad about was I didn't accurately get to communicate to him how important it was for me to meet him. He said he felt really sort of sad about that because he said my mouth was open that I was there with Jackie Robinson. It doesn't seem like you had the exact same experience with Mr. Koufax.
Right. Well, Bill Russell, if I may, is one of the 5 greatest basketball players of all time. I believe he's the greatest rebounder and the greatest defender in the history of the NBA. I believe he's the greatest winner in the history of all 4 major team sports. He won 2 NCAA titles, a gold medal in the Olympics, and 11 NBA championships. And real quickly, he hated to practice. Okay. So one day, Red Auerbach says, Russell, we're scrimmaging today and you're playing hard. Do you understand? So Russell said, okay, Red, I'll play hard today in practice, right? So they pick up teams. It's not the first team against the second team. They pick up teams, and Russell's team won 50-6. And Russell completely dominated the game. And he looks at Red afterwards and says, see what happens when I try? I just ruin the game. That's how great Bill Russell was.
Yeah. Bill Russell is unbelievable. You know, the one thing, and we're off topic, but the one thing he did, Tim, most people, you go, hey, block 6 shots or 8 shots. Bill Russell used to actually block shots to his players. He could actually direct the block. It wasn't just swatting it down. And I'd never seen anybody do that.
Right. And he could block shots with both hands. That's why he's the greatest defender ever. Yeah. It just drives me crazy when people say, oh, Bill Russell couldn't play today. You have got to be kidding me. Yeah, he could do whatever he wanted today because he was that great. And they didn't even keep block shots until basically his career was over. Boy, that's one stat I would have loved to have seen done accurately, how many block shots per game he averaged.
Well, we don't want to miss the chance to have Tim Kurkjian on and talk about the day that is in front of us, the next like 28 hours or 27 hours. Tim, we've had one blockbuster drop already today with Josh Hader getting traded from the Brewers to the Padres for an interesting return. Your thoughts on that initial deal?
Yeah, it's not a shocker, but it's still a bit of a surprise. Josh Hader was making $11 million this year. Next year in arbitration, he was probably going to make 15, and then he's a free agent after next year. And the Brewers looked at it and said, we're probably not going to be able to sign him long term, so we better trade him now. And they did get a nice little haul in return, and they still have Devin Williams, who hasn't given up a run, by the way, since May the 10th. He's going to be their closer. So I think the Brewers are still going to be good, but to me, this is more about the Padres saying, again, we are going for it. This guy has averaged 15.4 strikeouts per 9 innings in his career. He is largely unhittable, even though he had a difficult month of July. And I think he adds a critical piece to the Padres. And the amazing part is they didn't give up a couple of their best young kids, Mackenzie Gore, CJ Abrams. And I'm not going here, but they are still in position to go get Juan Soto. They still have potentially enough pieces. Can you imagine that, getting Juan Soto and Josh Hader in 2 days in a row before the trade deadline? That would be staggering.
Yeah. Tim,
Ross?
what does that tell? What does that tell as a player with the Brewers and one of your top arms? I know that's like if I was still playing on a team and they traded away our best reliever, especially being a starting pitcher, I'm going, what are you doing? We got a chance of winning here. And you kind of scratch your head as a player in the clubhouse.
I'm sure there's some head scratching going on in Milwaukee. Unfortunately, those Brewer players all recognize the spot that they're in, even though they draw beautifully,
Right.
and they're not a real small market team. They're not a big market team there. And in order to make things work long term, they have to make some really difficult decisions. And sure, the Brewers are 3 games ahead in their division. They have a really good team, and they just traded the most dominant relief pitcher in baseball today. But maybe the haul is going to help them, and then they're going to go out and trade for Josh Bell or somebody else and give them the bat that they need. But sure, that it can't be a good day in the Brewers clubhouse today.
Yeah, unreal. What do you see the O's doing anything?
I'm not sure what they're going to do. I'm a little conflicted about what the Orioles should do. On the one hand, they need to stick with the plan on the rebuild. And yet the plan has been diverted this year because they played exceptionally well. And I think part of the mindset has to be, we need to reward our fans for hanging with us, and we need to reward our players by going for it now. I don't like their chances of making the playoffs, but it just doesn't seem right to start unloading now when they've done such an amazing job to get back in this thing. So I could see them trading, Jorge Lopez. I'm not sure that's a good idea, but I could see them doing that. But I don't think trading Trey Mancini makes any sense right now. No. He's the emotional leader of the team. This is a very emotional game, and it's very much involved with leadership and chemistry. I think if that guy's still on the team tomorrow afternoon, I think those players look around and go, he's still with us. That's great. Right. And with all due respect to Trey, I'm not sure you're going to get enough for him in a deal to justify trading him. I would keep him. I would trade Lopez, but only if you're going to get something really nice in return. And then I would see if I could go get another starting pitcher, Pablo Lopez from the Marlins. But if it's too much and you're going to ruin the plan that you built the last 5 years, maybe you don't do that. It's a tricky spot Mike Elias is in.
What kind of return could you foresee us getting? Because I agree with you. I think Lopez is the most tradable commodity they have right now. And I could see the good teams that are going for it saying, hey, this guy could really help us.
Yeah, I mean, the Yankees picked up Scott Efros today from the Cubs because they had to add another bullpen arm. You win these days, Ross, you know this better than anyone. You win in the postseason with a deep, versatile bullpen, and everyone's going to be adding relief help, including the Dodgers, and that's why the Orioles are going to get a decent return for Jorge Lopez. And maybe they have enough arms in that bullpen, Felix Bautista and others, who can make up for that. But so they may be a team that kind of adds and subtracts in the same trading deadline. It's really, really interesting.
Before we answer the big question about Juan Soto and where you think he ends up, I want to rapid fire you about 5 names. Okay. I got to see him pitch the other night. I can honestly say I don't think I ever saw Tyler Mahle pitch before, Mahle, however you pronounce it, with the Reds. Where's he going to end up? I was hugely impressed with him the other night.
Yeah, he's been good for a couple of years, and I think he's going somewhere because with Luis Castillo.
The Phillies a good fit.
Phillies need a starting pitcher. Cardinals badly need a starting pitcher. Tyler Mahle's going to go somewhere because he knows what he's doing out there. And when he's not nibbling, he can throw a lot of strikes. And the Reds got such a haul for Luis Castillo that if they're rebuilding, they need to trade Tyler Mahle also because he can bring them back something in return.
What about Frankie Montas? And if you say Yankees, are the Yankees smarter going for Montes than well, I guess the the haul that Seattle gave for Castillo was huge. Is Montes worth exactly that, Tim?
No, he's not as good as Luis Castillo, and everybody
agree.
knows that in the industry. Now, the A's will do well for Frankie Montas, but not nearly as well as the Reds did for Luis Castillo. There are people in the industry telling me, I can't believe they got that much for one pitcher, but that guy's really good. I mean, an elite changeup, and he's been great lately. Montas might end up with the Yankees. The Yankees have some pieces to deal, but wherever he goes, St. Louis, New York, whatever, he's going to help him. He's not a 1, probably not a 2, but in this day and age, you better have 3 or 4 starters if you're going to get through a postseason.
I know how painful it is for a general manager or team president to kind of admit a mistake. And I think last year, Brian Cashman gave up a pretty good haul for Joey Gallo. He's not going to get back nearly what he gave up, but is he going to deal him? And is Milwaukee a good fit for him?
Yeah, I think he's going to trade Joey Gallo, and I think he should trade Joey Gallo. Joey Gallo is a great kid, and yeah. I just think he's one of those guys who has trouble playing in New York. There's no other explanation for someone who's this good of a player to struggle this badly. And yes, the Brewers, I just did their game Saturday in Boston on the radio, and they need another bat, I think, badly. And again, that's Josh Bell, that's Joey Gallo, and I think it's worth a try because you're not going to have to give up much to get him. He is a free agent at the end of the season, but I think a change of scenery is exactly what Joey Gallo needs.
Ross, you got a couple quick names to fire at?
Well, I got a team. The Giants won 107 games last year. I mean, a lot of things went right for them. This year, they're hovering around 500. What do you see with them?
Yeah, I don't see the Giants making the playoffs, and that puts them in a tricky spot. They're used to winning, and a year after winning 107 games to unload at the trade deadline just doesn't seem right. So maybe they won't, but Carlos Rodon is out there, and he's the best pitcher out there now with Luis Castillo gone. And, Jock Peterson is going to be out there, and he was a very important player for the Braves down the stretch. So I don't see a fire sale of any kind in San Francisco, but they're going to have to make a very difficult decision. But I think if they're smart about it, they're going to recognize we're never catching the Dodgers, obviously. Yeah. The Padres are better than we are. The Mets and the Braves are better than we are. The Phillies are better than we are. I just don't see them making the playoffs. Therefore, I think they should look to trade Rodon because they can really get something for him.
Right.
You think Cashman is sort of playing a game between Montes and Rodon now, and he'll come up with one of those two?
Yeah, I think the Yankees will get a premium starting pitcher out of all of this. And yes, Brian Cashman is playing a game right now. And so is every other general manager out there. This is when the GMs earn all their money right now. Are we in or are we out? Are we buyers or are we sellers? I'm telling you, fellas, I've been doing this for 40 years, and I've had general managers tell me, if we win tonight's game, we're going to be buyers. If we lose tonight's game, we're going to be sellers. Sometimes
they're not sure.
It comes down to that.
Yeah.
Hey, Tim,
any surprises on the horizon the next day or so that you have a feel about, or anything in particular?
Well, this is also the beauty of the trade deadline. There is always a surprise or two. Right. Every year, I slap my forehead and say, how in the world did that happen? And nobody saw it coming. And don't forget, last year, Max Scherzer, remember, was going to the Padres. That deal was done, supposedly. And then suddenly he ends up on the Dodgers. So this is a time where misinformation is everywhere. But to answer your question, Ross, we have to keep our eye on the Red Sox also here. Another team that has struggled tremendously.
Right.
And to me, they're going to move some guys, maybe JD Martinez, maybe Christian Vasquez, maybe some other guys because if they're really smart about this, they'll recognize they're not going to the playoffs this year either. They are really stumbling around right now, and they have to save every penny they have, in my opinion, to make sure Rafael Devers and Xander Bogaerts don't get away. So maybe that will be part of the plan, but it's also very difficult to tell the fans of Boston we're kind of giving up on a season when they're technically still in the wild card race, and they are.
Timmy, before we let you go, I've got to ask you one question about the Orioles, and then we're going to find out where Juan Soto's going. You've gotten to witness, you've been around this game for a long time. There were a lot of naysayers here in Baltimore about Mike Elias, about doing a full-blown, rebuild, which the Orioles have never endeavored to do before. You're sort of grading Mike Elias from point of hiring to this point in time. What do you give him?
Well, I'm not avoiding the question, but it's still an incomplete because we're still not sure. Now, up to this point, you can't give him more than a C, okay? But now that they've gotten this team in contention, and again, I don't think they're making the playoffs, and you still have Grayson Rodriguez, you still have Gunnar Henderson, you still have DL Hall in the minor leagues, you got kids to work with moving forward. I think he may be moving up from the C's because they lost a lot of games the last few years. But again, Theo Epstein, when he went to Chicago, remember the heat he took when people kept saying, Theo, you said this was going to take some time. We didn't know it was going to take this long. That's all Oriole fans need to keep in mind. When you rebuild, whether it's in Houston or Chicago, you have to be ready for some really lean times like the Orioles have gone through. So let's see what Mike Elias does in the next 2 days, and then what happens next year and where, these great young kids in the minor leagues, where they end up.
How did he do with his number 1 pick this year?
Well, I love his number 1 pick. I knew his number 1 pick when he was 5 years old, and I would see him at the games, and Matt Holliday would be with his son, and he would say, Jackson, just show Mr. Kurkjian your and he would do Ken Griffey Jr. Right? He would do every batting stance, and he's 5 years old. So I'm thinking when he's 5, this kid's going to play in the big league someday. And of course, here he is. I think they did exceptionally well with him because he's got really good bloodlines with his father.
All right. We know you got to get back to work, and we really appreciate your slicing out some time for us. Ross and I are dying to know, where is Juan Soto going to end up? And why are the Giants not bending over backwards to make a deal for Juan Soto, even if they're not in the race this year?
Right. Well, I'm dying to know where Juan Soto is going also. And we've talked about the Padres. They still make sense to me. Can you imagine Fernando Tatis Jr. coming back, leading off, Soto hitting second, Manny Machado third? Wow, that would be an interesting threesome, not just for this postseason, but for the next 3 postseasons until Juan Soto becomes a free agent. The Cardinals are desperate for help. They need a starting pitcher more than anything, but they're in it for Soto. The Dodgers are always in it because they're the Dodgers. I'm not sure they're in it with both feet, but those would still be my 3 leading candidates. And yes, the Giants should be in on this too. But again, their organization is not maybe built to, I don't know if they have enough to go get him. And that's the point of this whole thing. Mike Rizzo, who's running the show for the Nationals, is simply not going to trade Juan Soto unless he gets what he wants in return. And Mike Rizzo is tough, and he's shrewd, and he knows every player in every organization. And there's just no way he's going to trade a young Ted Williams like this without getting the greatest haul that anyone's ever seen.
Last thing, Juan Soto, Ted Williams never had a year like Juan Soto's having this year. You think it's the whole negotiation, the team being up for sale, and just the pressure caving a little bit?
Yeah, and I notice I said a young Ted Williams. I'm a bit offended when somebody says Juan Soto is Ted Williams. Ted Williams, by the way, his career OPS is higher than the best single season OPS of any active player. No active player has ever had an OPS season that can match Ted Williams' career OPS. And you're right, Ted Williams never got to the All-Star break hitting 242. It just could not happen with him. But there are similarities, their plate discipline, their power, everything.
No
Juan Soto
question.
is, and he's so good, and he's so young. But yeah, we'll just have to see. That's why this will be one of the biggest trades in baseball history, because of already he's got a track record. He's only 23 years old, and he's going to get better from here.
Before we let him go, Ross, you got anything to say to your friend?
One thing, if you had to tell a young writer that wanted to be, a writer,
Tim Kurkjian.
what would you tell him to help him along?
Well, obviously you got to show up. You got to be prepared. You got to work your butt off. That's all obvious. But you got to be curious. When you watch a game, you got to say to yourself, you got to watch the game first off. We've gotten away from watching the games these days. We're watching our computer screens and our Twitter feeds. We're not watching the games anymore. You got to watch the game and then ask yourself, when's the last time that happened? What happened on that play? And then go ask somebody who knows more than you. Tell me what happened on that play. And then when you get up in the morning and you read the box scores, look at them and ask yourself, when's the last time I saw a pitching line like that? Or when's the last time somebody grounded into 2 double plays and struck out 4 times in a game? These are the things that I look for every day. So that's the point. Just be curious, keep your eyes and ears open, and ask as many questions as you can to people who know more about it than you do.
Perfect.
Tim, thanks for spending some time with us. Congratulations. And that Johnny Bench story is absolutely priceless, as is the Koufax story.
Well, thank you,
really
fellas.
great.
Thank you for having me today. I'm going to go back and try to figure out what's going on with Juan Soto.
All right. Thank
Tim,
you.
thanks, buddy. Thank you so much.
See you guys. Thank you, Stan. Thank you, Ross.
All right. He's Tim Kurkjian of ESPN. And we're going to say goodbye in just a second after I get this final commercial out of the way for the Costas Inn. I'll bet you down in Florida, you miss the Costas Inn, don't you, Ross?
Hey, every time we go up there, I try to go. And matter of fact, my buddy sometimes sends the crab cakes down here for me. So I get them. I still get them, but they are just like you said, Stan, that's one of the best places to go for anything. I mean, the crabs, I love the crabs. That's one of the main places we go. Crab cakes, and even the steaks, chicken, fish, everything they got is fantastic.
I love their ribs. I
haven't had the ribs, but
ribs
obviously we go most time we
absolutely
get the crabs, which
crab
we
cake,
love,
yeah.
but everything else is fantastic. They treat us great.
Yep.
They treat everybody
They
fantastic.
treat everybody fantastic. And by the way, again, they're located 4100 North Point Boulevard. Take down their phone number. Keep it handy, 410-477-1975. And the Costas Inn, again, they've really stepped up since the pandemic started. They stepped up their carry out or curbside business. They've fixed up the place a little bit better, so it's nicer. And the food is just it's to die for. I'll tell you what. And they pack it up so perfectly. You're not going to have your grandma's cheesecake get crab soup over it, because everything is packed immaculately. CostasInn.com. Order and pay for your food online, and then just pick it up. It's as easy as that. You can time it so you can be home for the first pitch of an O's game to watch that. Ross, you and I will be back on our Monday at 6 o'clock routine next week, and we'll figure it out who we're going to get. All right.
You got you, buddy.
All right. Anything you wanted to say?
No, just waiting like everybody else to see where this thing goes with the trade deadline and what the O's going to do. So it's pretty exciting to see what'll happen, and we'll move on from there.
Yeah, I think there's a good chance that Lopez is the main cog that they trade if they make a trade at all. They're in a weird spot where you got to thread the needle correctly. And I think everybody I talk to makes the same point, Ross, that for what you can get, even if you're not convinced Mancini's long-term for you, giving him to somebody and not getting back
Right.
useful pieces, that's the wrong thing to do.
Well, it sends a bad message to your fan base, who is starting to slowly come back, slowly get excited about what's going on. And Mancini, say what you want, I know he struggled of late, swinging the bat a little bit, but he brings such a presence in the clubhouse, and he's just really a special guy to have on the team. And I think at this particular time, what you're going to get, a couple of young guys. You're going to get more young guys. I mean, they're starting to turn the corner here, a little bit, and head in the direction everybody wants them to. So it'll be interesting, but I think I don't think it would help to move them. I really don't. I think a lot of people feel the same way, but who knows? Stranger things have happened.
Ross, how many are you able to watch fairly regularly, the games down there in Florida, the Oriole games?
No, I haven't. I get the Tampa Bay games, but I do follow. I follow the games pitch by pitch on the computer. So between the other things I'm doing,
I know you got a life too.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if you had seen enough of Mountcastle over the last month. I don't think he's hit a home run since like July the 2nd or 3rd.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
he looks like he's reverted back to helping the pitcher too much.
Yeah, he swings at some pitches out of the zone. But you know what? I mean, hitters go through these things. Pitchers go through them. One of the things that as a pitcher, you'd be very good, you'd be average, and you'd be poor. During 160. Hitters go through the same thing, and they go through. And the thing is, one of the biggest things that you always see, a hitter will be hitting the ball in the nose and not getting any hits, and then they'll start doing some different things, and now he's in a slump. That's how slumps start. But if you just keep doing what you're doing, hitting the ball hard, it's going to fall, eventually. But I think Mountcastle is starting. I think he got a bloop hit the other a week ago or so that's drove in a run or two. But you just keep swinging. He's too good a hitter. And you go through a tough time. You start doubting yourself a little bit. You start getting anxious. You start swinging at bad pitches, which he does at times, and that's just not him. So I think once he gets back in the fold of doing things, he'll be fine. But it's a streak. It's a thing that guys go through. Hitters go through it. Pitchers go through it. Fielding, the fielders will go through it at times. But it's just something that you just battle through and stay positive, and eventually good hitters will come out of it, and he's a good hitter.
All right. That's Ross Grimsley. I'm Stan the Fan Charles. Don't forget, I'll be back this week a couple times during the week. And for the life of me right now, I don't have my schedule in front of me, but I've got a Wednesday Zoom and a Thursday Zoom, and we'll spread that out on social media, who I've got and what we've got. I know one of our guests is going to be Steve Brunner from KMO Sports. I think we're talking to him Thursday at 7:00, and that's about the upcoming Maryland Cycling Classic. All right, stay tuned for that. And we're on Wednesday as well. All right, that does wrap us up. Brought to you by the Costas Inn. For Tim Kurkjian, the Hall of Famer, and his friend, his close personal friend, Ross Grimsley, I'm Stan the Fan Charles, and we'll see you down the road just a bit.